Welcome back to Tanach and Tea. Anybody remember what happened 2 weeks ago? Quick recap. We ended last week, or 2 weeks ago, we ended with Perek, which was David and Yonatan saying their goodbyes to each other, right? David figured out that he needs to go on the run. Yonatan relayed the news to him, to his father's reaction. And then we started a new chapter of David's life, which is David the fugitive. And we started off, we did the first 8 psukim of Perek Aleph, which is what you have in front of you. We might get into Perek Chaf today. And in Perek Aleph, the first 8 psukim, we saw that David went to the city of Nov. He went to the city of Nov, which was a city of Cohanim. It's actually located near modern-day Yerushalayim, which back then, David is the one who instituted Yerushalayim, so it didn't really exist back then. So Nov is really, if you're just imagining it in Israel, Nov is near modern-day Yerushalayim, and that was the city of Cohanim. We said that David went there to get the Urim V'Tumim so he could have Hashem's guidance and ask him questions. And he also went there because he ran away and he was starving. And he went there hoping to get food, and they happened to have lechem panim. And even though it's not normally allowed for him, he was able to get. And we ended off talking about that there was somebody else here watching this go down. And the other person here was Doeg Hadomi, Doeg the Edomite. We gave a bunch of reasons as to why he's called Doeg the Edomite, and not a good guy. And he's really the mole here. He's the plant. He's the guy who's going to rat out this situation to Shaul, which if we move enough ground today, we'll see the ramifications of that. We're up to Pasuk Tet, Pasuk 9 in Perek Chaf Aleph. David at this point, we left David still in the middle of his conversation with Hamelech the Kohen Gadol, right? He agreed to give him bread now, and as we said, Doeg is watching this, and now, Vayomer David LaAchimelech, David says to Achimelech, V'in yesh po tachat yidcha, is there not in your possession chanit, a sword, o chorev, a spear, o chorev, or a sword, ki gam charbi, for I don't have a sword, v'gam keli, and I don't have any weapons, lo lekachti, I didn't take them with me, biyadi in my hand, ki haya devar hamelech nochutz, because the king's matter was urgent, right? So remember, Achimelech's alarm bells went off when he saw David show up on his own, right? He didn't trust, it was like a weird situation that David, the king's son-in-law, did not show up with any servants accompanying him, so his alarm bells went off, right? And it turns out he was correct, right? But David carefully crafted this lie that he's on an important mission and it's really urgent. He has his servant boy is going to meet him over there. So now David's still operating within this lie. David wants to get a weapon because, David's a fugitive on the run. He got food, but, weapon would really help his case. So he tells him, I was in a rush. That's why I don't have a weapon. Do you have something here? Right? Now, just to point this out, this is going to be one of the main points of Doeg's slander to Shaul about Achimelech in the future. Right? And he's not going to present what's really happening, which is that Hamelech is making this decision to give him a weapon under false pretenses, right? So when Shaul hears that Hamelech gave David a weapon, he looks super guilty. So Doeg is carefully not telling him the full truth. Vayomer HaKohen. So the Kohen says, Charev Goliath, the sword of Goliath, the Plishti, Asher Rikisa, that you killed, Be'emek Ele, in the Ele Valley, Hine behold, he, Luta, Besimla, it's wrapped in a cloth, Achrei Ephod, behind the ephod. Im, Ota Tekach Lecha, if you want to take that, Kach, take it, Ki Ein Acher Razula Sabazeh, because there's nothing other than that over here. Vayomer David, Ein Kumoha, there's nothing like this to Nedna Li. Give it to me. Right? So, interesting. The only sword that's there is actually the sword that David used to kill Goliath. It's Goliath's sword. So apparently he went away into the city of Nov, kind of like in the place where all the holy stuff are kept. It was a big deal when it happened. It's the only sword there. This is going to make Achimelech look even worse when Doeg slanders him. Because what he gives him the sword that he used to kill Goliath, now it looks like you're really pumping this guy up, right? It doesn't look like you're just giving him a sword because he's on the king's mission. It looks like you're giving into David's hype machine, right? By giving him his sword. And if you notice, David actually has a reaction here. Like, yeah, I'll take this sword. Like, there's nothing like this sword. I already used this sword for one miracle. Absolutely, I want this sword. There's an interesting language over here. And Achimelech did tell him, who better to take it than you, right? It's not Achimelech thinks he's operating for the state. He's not shying away from who better to take the sword than you? So there's an interesting language over here that it says, achrei ha'ephod, behind the ephod. It seems like an unnecessary detail, where exactly the sword is kept. So Yonatan ben Uziel translates behind the ephod as after the ephod, meaning after Achimelech asked the Urim V'Tumim, after he asked Hashem, should I give this sword to David? Meaning he didn't just give away the sword, he actually asked God, and God, with the Choshen Mishpah, with the ephod, with the Urim V'Tumim, actually answered him, and that's when he made the decision.
Wait, so you could say that Hashem sent him to his death, right?
He was going to get slandered anyway. At this point, anything he does, once he gave him the showbread, Doeg had enough on him to get him killed in the future, which we'll see.
Now, did Doeg, I might be jumping ahead, but did Doeg know that Hamelech didn't know?
Yes, he was there. He watched the conversation. He saw David lie, and he's a slanderer. Right? Yeah.
Wow, so he's just a scumbag.
Yes.
Oh.
That's why David hates him. Yeah. V'yakach David. So David took it. Vayavrach, and he ran. Bayomahu, on that day. Mipnei Shaul, from before Shaul. Now, if you notice, Shaul's not there. So what does that mean? He ran from before Shaul. Shaul wasn't there. Well, who was there? We're the guy we're talking about. Doeg, right? David saw Doeg. David knew that he's got to get out of here now. Right? This is actually on Shabbat that David leaves. And David's just I got to get out. Right? Because Doeg is there, and he knows that he's going to be calling in Shaul.
Why didn't he kill Doeg?
That would make his problems even worse, probably, and I don't know if he had that ability to at this point. And also, I don't know if that would be a legal killing. Remember, David doesn't just kill to kill; he kills, if that's the right thing to do. Vayivo el Achish, Melech Gat, and he came to Achish, the king of Gat. Now, if the city of Gat sounds familiar, that's because that's the city that Goliath is from. So where does David run to, of all places? He runs to the city, he runs to the Plishtim, right? David kind of he's going to, so if you're looking at modern day, there's actually, where this is on the, not in the Gaza Strip, Gat, but where the kibbutzim that were attacked were. It's in that area over there, and Nova's from Yerushalayim. So he kind of just ran away from Israel proper, right? He ran away from Shaul. He's I got to get out. I got to go. And what's the place he goes to? A very dangerous place. He goes to the Plishtim, hoping that maybe he can find some sort of refuge over there.
What?
It was an in the moment decision that Doeg is on his back, right? David saw the jealousy. He saw the hatred in Doeg's eyes, and he realized he needs to quickly get out of here. So he didn't really have an alternative. That's why he headed for Gat. Now, Achimelech blessed David on his way out, which also didn't help his case, but of course that helps David. They got a blessing from the Kohen Gadol. And he goes to this king, Achish. Now, just know, Achish's bodyguards are none other than Goliath's brothers. So the king that he's running to, it's not just the city of Goliath. The people that advise Achish and the bodyguards themselves are Goliath's brothers. And right away when David gets there, everyone, the servants of Achish, are suspicious of David, as they should be. Maybe David's trying to play it off I'm an enemy of Shaul. I don't know how exactly he's trying to play it. But right away they are suspicious. Now, David actually wrote a Tehillim in this danger. If you want to look it up, it's Tehillim number 56, where David starts it off by saying when the Plishtim seized him in Gat, that's David writing from this angle when he's in this spot of fear. Yes?
I just want to clarify something.
Yeah.
I thought David killed Goliath with the sling,
yeah, so he shot him with the slingshot, and then he took Goliath's own sword and then chopped his head off.
Okay.
Yeah. So...
Why did he chop his head off? He was already dead.
Now, there's different opinions whether or not he was dead, and also in his trash talk to Goliath, he told him, I will chop your head off. So he just wanted to be a man of his word, and I think also to make all the Plishtim run away, it was a scare tactic. Everyone freaked out and ran away, and there's also a chance he wasn't necessarily dead. Now, you should know that David questioned Hashem on something. David questioned Hashem on why insanity exists. Hashem, what pleasure do you get out of insanity? Right? Everything in this world has a purpose. What purpose do having crazy people around, what's the purpose of that? And Hashem told him, you question me on having insane people? That's what's going to save your life, and that's what we're going to see now. the existence of mad people, of insane people, is what's going to save David now. Because Vayomru Avdei Achish, the servants of Achish, Elav, hello, they say to him, hello Zed David. Is this not David? Melech Haaretz, king of the land? Hello Lazeh, Ya'anu, the one who they say, but Machalot, and they sing, Lamar saying, Hikash Sha'ul ba'alafav, Shaul has killed his thousands, but David, B'rivosav, and David, his tens of thousands. So first of all, that's a direct quote, if you remember, from the very sentence that made Shaul mad, that the women were singing when they came back from fighting the Plishtim. But more than that, they called David Melech Haaretz. But David's not Melech Haaretz. So what does that mean, that they're calling him Melech Haaretz? They say to Achish, is this not David? This is not Melech Haaretz? What are they saying?
They know he's going to be king.
So it seems that they view him as the king, meaning they view him as the stronger, better person between him and Shaul. The whole reason why Shaul is afraid is because everyone knows David is better. David's kind of like, his official authority is not the king, but it really seemed like David was already the king. The praises he was getting, the killing in wars that he was doing, he's the king's son-in-law, right? David had all the vibes, right? He was clearly, to the point that it seems that the Plishtim and the Jews themselves viewed David as the king, which now we understand Shaul's fear. But there's another crazy opinion. There's a crazy opinion, the other opinion, as to what Melech HaAretz means. Because they didn't say Melech Yisrael. They said Melech HaAretz, king of the land. So there's another crazy opinion, which is that the servants looked at David and they're like, it makes no sense. It makes no sense that David ran away. He's the next in line for the throne, and they suspected him of being a spy, right? And they told Achish, give us permission and we will kill him. And Achish said, and by the way, when they said let's kill him, they also threw in like he killed our brother Goliath. And Achish said to them, oh, wait a second. Achish is trying to be reasonable. And he says, wait a second. Goliath set the terms of that battle. He killed him fair and square. That was Goliath's challenge, right? 40 days trash talk. It was Goliath who said, you kill me, we'll become your servants, right? So you know what they say back to him? They kind of have a snarky reply. They say, okay, fine. It was his terms. Well, according to Goliath's terms, if David wins, we all become David's servants, including you. So he's Melech HaAretz. He's king of your land. Meaning this is not them saying that he's Melech Yisrael. This is a snarky reply and them trying to get permission to kill him because they didn't like Achish's reasonable response of his killing of Goliath wasn't fair. It was a fair killing. They're like, if his killing was fair and the terms were fair, then you're not king anymore. He is. He's Melech HaAretz, right? So it's a little bit of a taunt to upset Achish, right? David placed these words in his heart, right? These words, this threat on his life now, this argument that's happening in front of David, now it gets him really scared. And he became very afraid of Achish, the king of Gat, right? Now, if you look at that Tehillim I was just referencing, which was Nun Vav 56, Pasuk Daled, the English says, on the day that I fear, I trust in you. That's literally what David said to Hashem in this moment. He composed this Tehillim after that, but in this very moment, David turned to God and he's like, I am terrified, I'm putting my trust in you. It seems like he has no way out. It seems like Achish is going to kill him, right? There's really no reason for him to spare David. And by the way, you know what makes David's case even worse? Is you know what's in his hand?
A sword.
Not just a sword, Goliath's sword. The very thing that they're talking about, like should he be incriminated on that? He's holding the weapon in his hand. Doesn't help his case, right? It makes it look like he might be back for more, right? So, Vayanso estamo b'neim. So he changed his behavior in front of them. Vayitalo b'yadam. And he started to act crazy, right? He started to act like an insane person. Vayasav al dasos hashar, and he started to scratch the doors of the gates. He started to scratch the doors. Vayorad riro el zikuno, and he starts letting saliva dribble down his beard. So David at this point is like, that's it, I'm just going to act crazy. He starts scratching the walls. He's foaming from his mouth. The Medrash tells us that he wrote on the walls. He wasn't just scratching nothing. He was scratching and writing things. And what he wrote on the walls was, Achish, the king of Gat, owes me 100,000 gold coins, and his wife owes me 50. That's what he's writing on the walls over and over again.
Is that a lot?
it just sounds crazy, right? Like, Achish, the king over here, owes me 100,000 gold coins, and his wife owes me 50. So that sounds like a crazy person, right? Now, as we said, David asked why madness exists, and as you see, he turned to madness here. We're going to see how it saves his life. Just so you know, it's not the only thing David questioned. He also questioned the insect, which will save his life in a further episode. But let's see how it happens here. Vayomer Achish el avadav. So Achish says to his servants, Hinei, behold, tir'u, do you not see, right? You see, ish mishtagea, that this man is crazy. Lama, why? Tavio to elai, why have you brought him to me? Now here's the interesting line. He says, because at face value, who cares that he's crazy, right? Why should that matter that he's crazy? Why should that save David's life? Listen to this line. Chasar mishugaim. Do I lack crazy people? Ani, do I lack crazy people? Ki uvatem ezeh liashtagei alai, that you brought him to display craziness in front of me? Yavo el beisi, shall I bring this into my house? What does it mean? Do I lack crazy people? What does that mean? Do I not have enough crazy people? So we're told that Achish's wife and daughter both had lost their minds and went crazy, and they were just screaming all the time. Why? The why, so that David's life would be saved here, so he would have compassion on someone crazy. Meaning, once Achish saw that David's not this threat that he thought him out to be, right? Once Achish saw this guy is crazy, Achish actually had a soft spot in his heart for someone crazy, and he definitely didn't want another crazy person around, but he didn't want to kill a crazy person. His wife's crazy and his daughter went crazy. I don't know what happened to them. They had some sort of episode, and they're literally screaming in the house as this is happening. So that's why Hashem invented crazy. Because now when David fakes crazy, here's a person who has rachmanos. Here's a person who has mercy on someone crazy. And now that saves his life, right? At face value, who cares that he acts crazy, right? Unbelievable thing over here. Now, by the way, just so you know, based off this explanation, it's not an accident that David had this idea to fake crazy. Meaning maybe there was a little bit of a method to the madness, literally. Which, by the way, you should know, you can look this up, I don't remember the exact name, but in World War II, there was an American soldier taken captive by the Japanese, and he pretended to be crazy, so they didn't kill him, and they found him to be funny, and they would take like videos of him, and he would constantly sing like Old MacDonald Had a Farm. I don't remember if that's the exact song, you can look it up, some sort of lullaby or song, and they thought it was hilarious. He wouldn't answer them, he would just sing it, and turns out what he was singing over and over again was all of their like military equipment and codes, and when he got saved, he was able to spit back everything because all day he was singing it to himself. And they literally didn't kill him. The Japanese were ruthless. They literally didn't kill him because they thought he was crazy and he was funny to have around. And there's other examples in war of this. So as you can see, David seems to be the architect of this, where it was on purpose, right? And maybe David even knew that this was the way to Achish's heart, right? He can see his daughter's acting crazy. He can see his wife's acting crazy. And there was a little bit of a method to the literal madness. Now, David actually wrote a Tehillim after this as well. It's Tehillim number Lamed Daled, 34. And the first words are by David when he faked madness before Avimelech, who drove him out, and he went. Avimelech is the general term for Plishti kings. We read this Tehillim every Shabbat in Pasuk de Zimra, only on Shabbat. And the reason why we do is because the day of the week that this happened was Shabbat, so we recall the miracle every Shabbat. Before we move on to the next Perek, I just want to throw out another ancient medrash. Take this at whatever you want to take it. But there's another ancient medrash that says that before David got taken to Achish, Goliath's brother, or one brother or multiple brothers, were not going to take him there. Right? It seems that there's an opinion that maybe he got captured not by Goliath's brothers, meaning not that Goliath's brothers were actually the bodyguards, but he got captured by Goliath's brothers independently. And they were just going to kill him. But before they killed him, they were going to sit down for a meal. You know, like in every movie, like the villain takes his time and then it gives the guy a second to get out. So he decided to sit down and have a meal. And this medrash says that David whispered some name of Hashem and was able to teleport away. You could take that for whatever you want. A lot of times these midrashim are here to really tell us what's really happening in the spiritual world. Which I think, if you want to combine this with what's happening, I think this is really what happened. Meaning, in the physical world, he faked madness, and that's why he got away. But in the spiritual world, which is really what's happening, what influences the physical world, right? In the spiritual world, he counted on Hashem and he teleported away. Now this teleportation just has to happen in actual physical realm, in real time, right? It's almost like we're told that every single country has a malach, right? And when Yeshua was fighting the Plishtim, when Yeshua was fighting the Cohanim, he saw that the malach of the Cohanim, the angel, was wrapped up already, tied up. Moshe, similarly, when he was doing the Makos, the Egyptian malach was wrapped up. Meaning, what was already supposed to happen in the spiritual world is happening. The actual battle is a foregone conclusion, right? It's almost like the inside of the body versus outside of the body, right? You have symptoms of something. If you put makeup on a symptom from some sort of disease, it does nothing. Once you take care of it, then that's a foregone conclusion. That'll happen afterwards. So I think that's one way to understand this medrash, is that this medrash is telling us what literally happened, meaning in the spiritual world, in the inside of the body. The inside of the body was, he called on Hashem and he teleported away. How that presented itself in our physical world was with the madness and whatever. Yeah.
Where do they get that from?
This is an ancient medrash. I don't know exactly which medrash it is. I could look into it, potentially.
Think of that.
Where do they think of it? Maybe it's Kabbalistic. I'm not sure. It's a good question. This is the Loez who wrote this in the 1700s, who quotes this ancient medrash. A lot of times he brings in medrashim that are seen nowhere else. And I don't know where he gets them from, but yeah. All right, we're going to move on to Pasuk, to Perek Chaf Bet. Perek 22. It's the other paper in front of you. To recap this last Perek, this is the first Perek. The last Perek we just did is the first Perek of David on the run, right? And we saw him go to Hamelech, and then we saw him get into we saw him the whole Doeg situation over there. We saw him get a sword. We saw him get bread. He runs away to Gat. He gets saved over there, but he's not going to stay in Gat with this whole situation. It's obviously not a safe place. So where does he go from there? Vayelech David Misham. David departs from there. Vayimaleit Elma Arat Adulam. And he goes to the cave of Adulam. Vayishmu Echav. And his brothers heard, V'chol Beis Avim, and his entire father's house, V'yodu Elav Shama, and they joined him there. So his family hears that he's in the cave of Adulam, right? Back in some sort of safer place, I guess, on the run, but not in Gat, and his family joins him there. Why does his family join him on the run?
David's family?
Yeah.
To protect him?
To protect David?
Show.
They're probably in danger too.
Now they're in danger. Meaning, what is there's no justice system, right? If Shaul wants to send a message to David, he goes after his family, right? So at this point, David's own family become concerned that as being related to David, their lives are in danger. They don't want to stay around and wait for Shaul to, have a moment and come after them. So, as long as Shaul is jealous, truth will not matter. Vengeance will. Vayisk b'tzuelav. And there gathered to him, to David, kol ish, was every man, Matzok, who was pressed. V'chol ish, and every man, asher lo noseh, who was in debt. V'chol ish, and every man, mar nefesh, who had a bitter soul. Mar nefesh, a bitter soul. Vayihi aleim, and he became Lasar, their leader. Vayihu imo, and with him, ka'arba meos ish, was about 400 men. So at this point, now see David level up in his fugitive status. He literally becomes Robin Hood over here, where David is starting to gather a small army. He's not one guy on the run now. He's a guy with 400 men on the run, right? This is David, the beginning of him being a leader, right? Now, what's interesting about the people that he has with him, it kind of seems like societal outcasts. This doesn't sound like a good group of people, right? It says people who are pressed, people who are in debt, bitter soul. That's the people that David leaves, right? So one answer we can give is that the Chachamim tell us that Torah scholars are called pressed in this world, that they don't enjoy this world. They're pressed the entire time. They're stressed out. We have to learn, we have to accomplish. So it could be referring to that. And the Loez tells us over here that it's a mistake to assume that David has a group of outcasts. First of all, doesn't sound like David's profile. And also in the book of Chronicles, in Divrei HaYamim, which tells us the same situation over here, it's telling it to us from another angle. I'll read you the quote from over there, which says, "Now these are the ones who came to David at Ziklag, while he still kept himself shut up because of Shaul ben Kish. And they were among the mighty warriors, helpers in war. They were armed with bows and could use right hand and left in slinging stones and shooting arrows from the bow. And then it names each individual person by name and tribe. You can look it up that he had with him. And then it says, they helped David against the troop of raiders, for they were all mighty men at arms and captains in the host. For at that time, day by day, they came over to help him until it was a great camp, like the camp of God. Right? Doesn't sound like a bad group of people, especially that last line, camp of God. So it sounds like these people were not these societal outcasts that we think them to be, even though maybe there are some, who knows, maybe some looped on, and if David, finds that maybe he gets rid of them. But also, an important person in his camp is the prophet, the Navi Gad. So if he has a Navi in his camp, then we know his camp is a pretty good group of people. And Gad is actually going to advise David through prophecy, which we'll see. Okay, just want to point something out. This David is not a normal leader here. Because if you remember, David has already been anointed king. Right? Way back when, from Shmuel, before the story of Goliath, David has been anointed king. So these people actually have the king of the Jews as their leader. Which means he can be a much tougher leader than somebody else who's kind of like democratic, like he's appointed by them. A Jewish king has the ability, if his honor gets insulted in any way, he can kill people. Right? A Jewish king has legitimate power. So when he has this group of people now, he's actually more of a king than Shaul is. He has more halachic power to these 400 people than Shaul does to everyone else. Because Shaul is just kind of an acting king who really lost the kingship from Hashem. And yet he led this group of people with great humility. He led them the same way he led Shaul's army. He's just another person in the machine over here. Hamelech David. So from there David went Misham, from there Mitzpeh Moav, to the Mitzpeh of Moav. Vayomer, and he said, El Melech Moav, he said to the king of Moav, Yetze na avi v'yami itchem, please let my father and mother stay with you. Ad asher eda ma yaseh li Elokim, until I know what God will do for me. V'enchem es pnei melech, and then he brought them before the king of Moav, v'yishvu imo, and they lived near him, kol yimei, all the days hayod David b'mitzudah, until David was in this stronghold. So David, as you see, is a little bit concerned about his family. David is hiding out near Moav, but he's hiding out in situations that's not good for a family life. So he goes to the king of Moab and says, please house my family. Anybody know why he feels like he can even ask such a request to the king of Moab? Because of Ruth. Meaning his great-grandmother was a princess of Moab. Right? She was a princess of Moab. So he has royal legitimacy within Moab. So it's not a crazy request. There's, according to some opinion, that his brothers were also involved. The Pasuk just says father and mother. There's another opinion that the brothers chose to remain with his 400 men. But regardless, David is staying near Moab, but they're staying in Moab. Vayomer Gad Hanavi, we just spoke about Gad Hanavi. Vayomer Gad Hanavi, and Gad Hanavi says, El David, to David, Lo Tesheh b'mtzudah, do not stay in the stronghold. Lech, go, uvasalecha eretz Yehuda, and go to the land of Judah. Vayelech David, and David went, Vayavo Ya'ar Charet, and he stayed in the forest of Charet. So this prophet, Gad, very big prophet, he goes to David and says, you need to go. And the question is why? So the Medrash tells us that the reason why is that he knew through prophecy that the Melech of Moab, Melech Moab, was going to betray him. Melech Moab was afraid of Shaul, right? Even though David has royalty in Moab, he's afraid of Shaul, so he's planning on turning David over. So God goes to him and tells him, he doesn't tell him why, but he tells him, and I'm not even sure if he knows exactly why, but Hashem tells him that, right, get David out of here. Unfortunately, he leaves his family there because he doesn't know the reason. And the Medrash tells us, it's not necessarily like a main opinion, but the Medrash tells us that he killed David's family. Melech Moab killed David's family, father, mother, siblings, and according to that opinion, one brother was able to get away. His name was Elihu, and Elihu ran to the nation of Ammon, and they housed him and refused to hand him over. And when David became king, he made sure to repay the kindness to the nation of Ammon, which was Hanun, Nachash's son, whatever. These are some names that Nachash is the current king, Hanun is the next king. But anyways, David made sure to repay the kindness. Now, David did find safety in the land of Yehuda, and that Shaul did not come after him for some time. We'll see when he decides to come after him. But also, this is kind of the beginning of David becoming the king of Yehuda. He's not there yet, but David eventually becomes king of Yehuda for 7 years before he becomes king of the rest of the nation of Israel. Okay, there's another opinion. According to the opinion that Melech Moav was not going to kill David's family, the other opinion as to why David left is why God told him to leave is because Hashem didn't want David's kingship to materialize inside of another nation. He wanted it to be in the land of Yehuda. Vayishma Shaul, and Shaul heard, Ki noda David. Shaul heard that that David, Vanashim, and his men, Asher told that were with him, had been discovered. Right? He found out. Shaul finds out that David has a small ragtag group with him, 400 people. He's staying in the forest in Judah. V'Shaul Yoshev Bagiva Tachat Eshel, and at this time Shaul is under the tree Barama in the Ramah. V'Chinato Biyado, and he kept his sword in his hand. V'Chol Lavadav, and all of his servants Nitzavim Elav are standing near him. All of his servants are standing near him. So, obviously it makes sense Shaul would find out. Rumors spread quickly, right? David's not operating alone now. He has 400 people. And when Shaul finds out, he gets angry. He gets angry at his servants, right? Why is he angry at his servants? Because first of all, nobody told him. That he didn't get informed sooner. And also, we see that he doesn't really trust them. How do we see that he doesn't trust his servants anymore? The spear in his hand, right? Shaul sounds like Shaul sounds like it's in the Pasuk. Shaul sounds like someone who is what's the word? Paranoid? Yeah, right? Shaul's very paranoid. He's sitting amongst his own servants, spear in his hand. He doesn't know who's going to betray him at any moment. And there's another interesting language over here. First of all, we see that he sat under a tree that sounds similar to Devorah and other people who would sit under a tree and kind of judge the people from there. I guess that's maybe telling you to have your office outside, not inside, like Shaul. But also, it says that he was in the Ramah, which is interesting because who's from the Ramah? Anybody know who's the famous person from the Ramah? Shmuel. Shmuel is from the Ramah, which is really telling us that the reason why Shaul is still king, the reason why Shaul's reign still exists, is because of the person from Ramah, because of Shmuel. Because Shmuel davened to Hashem, when Hashem told Shmuel that Shaul is no longer going to be king, Shmuel davened to Hashem that not in his lifetime. Shmuel loved Shaul, he anointed him, and he didn't want to see Shaul go down. So even though he knew that he should, he told him, you're going to be replaced. He didn't want to see it. It was painful for him. So therefore, this language over here, that he was in the Ramah, is included to tell us that Shaul's only still on the throne because Shmuel is still alive, and it's his prayer that's keeping him going. It's not on his own merit anymore. Let's continue. Vayomer Shaul. We just said that Shaul's paranoid, right? We're going to see this right now. Vayomer Shaul. Shaul says, La'avadav, to his servants, Hanitzivim alav, we're standing near him. Shemuna, listen to me. B'nei Yemini, Benjamites, right? Listen to me, Binyamin, right? Now, why is that important? Because the people around him are literally his own tribe, right? Shevet Binyamin, listen to me. Gam l'chulechem, Yitain ben Yishai, Sodot, Ucharamim. Will ben Yishai give you also fields and vineyards? L'chulasem yosim sari alafim v'sari meot. And will he appoint you as captain over thousands and captain over hundreds? Ki kishartem kulchem alai. All of you have conspired against me. Ve'ein gola es azni, and none of you told me, bichrat b'ni, that my oldest son, Im ben Yishai, is in cahoots with ben Yishai. Right? None of you guys told me about Yonatan, my son, about him and his pact with, it doesn't call him David, right? It calls him ben Yishai, which as we said, you know, it's not a term of endearment, right? Ve'ein chola. And none of you felt bad for me. None of you felt sick over me. Here I am with my Shevet and my son, and all of you are conspiring around me. I can't trust a single one of you. And you guys aren't even telling me. Mikam alai v'gala esazni. You never told me, ki ekim b'ni, that my son is in cahoots as Avdi, with my servant. Alai. La'orev kayom hazeh. And they're waiting to get after me on this day. So as we can see, he suspects his own people around him right now. Right? To the point that he has a spear in his hand and is even questioning their motives. Because he says to them, your motives make no sense. You think Ben Yishai is going to give you fields? You think Ben Yishai is going to give you vineyards? You think he's going to make you captain? You think he's going to make you officer? No. That's for his own tribe. Right? Yehuda, Jews, right? Yehudim. That's who he's going to give all the good stuff to. You guys are fools. What's in it for you? Why are you even doing this, right? And his assumption, he's assuming that they have loyalty to David only for rewards, right? That's his assumption. He's also assuming they even have loyalty to David. It's not necessarily that they have loyalty to David, but we do know that everyone did have a liking to David, even his own tribe. So he's not off base over here. But even so, they did not betray him. And you can see how jealousy can really, once it takes root, how it can get worse and worse. Because first, David doesn't want to kill him, but he thinks David does, right? And certainly not his own tribespeople are after him. Even if they like David, they don't want to kill him. But like it just his paranoid jealousy is spreading, right? It's getting even to his own son now. Vayan now, or you said he's a scumbag. The key to a great scumbag is knowing when to be the most scummy possible. When Shaul is at his lowest moment right now, when he's sitting there with a sword in his hand and he's doubting even the closest people around him, this is when Doeg strikes. Vayan Doeg, and Doeg, the Edomite answers, V'hu nitzav el avdei Shaul, who's in charge of the Shaul servants. Vayomer, and he says, Re'isi es ben Yishai. Oh, you're telling everybody that they don't have your back? I have your back. He said, I saw ben Yishai. Right, and as you can see, Doeg not too fond of David either. I saw ben Yishai. Bo Novo, I saw him go to the city of Nov. El Achimelech ben Achituv, to the Kohen Gadol, to Achimelech, right? Now, as we know, Doeg, like a true bad person, is not going to give the truth, as we referenced earlier. He's not going to mention that David said he's on the king's mission. He's not going to mention that David is starving when he got the bread. He's going to include all the details to make Achimelech look really bad. Remember, Achimelech does nothing here, right? Doeg is literally slandering Achimelech for no good reason except to advance himself in Shaul's eyes. Right? Or maybe not even that. We're not even sure what's really in it for Doeg to slander Achimelech here. Right? Achimelech is an innocent person who thought he was operating within Shaul's wants and desires, and Doeg is going to spin this, right? And enhance Shaul's jealousy. Shaul is having a weak moment right now, and he's paranoid and jealous, and Doeg is going to say, by the way, you're right. You know who's even against you? The Kohen Gadol. Right? The Kohen Gadol is even against you. Right? And he's going to spin this to show him that. Okay. Vayishalo, he's not done. He says to him, Vayishalo, he asked Hashem for him. Right? He asked Hashem, meaning he asked the Urim V'Tumim on account of David. Not a cool thing to do. And we're going to speak about that further. V'Tseida, Natanlo, and he gave him supply. He gave him be'eskarev. He gave him supplies, and he gave him the sword Goliath of Goliath. Another thing over here, include that detail. That's going to make Shaul feel great, right? That he gave him the sword of Goliath. Haplishti Natan he gave to him, right? So as you can see, he's working every detail to Achimelech's disadvantage, right? He's going to specify that he asked the Urim V'Tumim on his account. He's going to specify the sword of Goliath. He's not going to talk about any of the other details, and this Urim V'Tumim that he specifies is very important. Because there's different opinions as to who can ask the Urim V'Tumim a question. There's different, according to one opinion, it's only the king. It's only the king. Now, that's according to one opinion, but according to almost everyone else, it's not just the king, it's also the court, and for someone in the community who has a need, right? So when David does this, when Achimelech does it for him, he's operating according to the main opinion, which is that you could do it for someone in need. But Doeg says to Shaul, they call him over here a Mamre Beitin, a rebellious scholar who disregards the decisions of the rove, right, of the community, of all the other scholars. He tells Shaul, as we said, Doeg is a big Talmud Chacham. He tells Shaul, no. You know who could only ask the Urim V'Tumim? Right? He disregards the main opinion. The only person who could ask the Urim V'Tumim is the king. So he He just anointed him. The Kohen Gadol treated him like he's the king, right? So you see, he spins that detail even further, rejects the mainstream opinion, and you should know, Avner, Shaul's general, actually tells Shaul in this moment, and says, that's not the main opinion, not just Avner, but also David's nephew, Amasa. And you're going to ask, what in the world is David's nephew doing here? I'll bring him up in a second, because how is David's nephew in Shaul's inner circle? Because David's nephew, Amasa, and Avner defend Achimelech over here. And Doeg doesn't care. He refused to accept this decision and insisted a Kohen can only ask the overturn on behalf of a king, and Achimelech was being rebellious over here. Vayishlach Hamelech, and the king called Lekro es Achimelech to Achimelech ben Achitov HaKohen, v'es kol beis aviv, and his entire house, the Cohanim, Asher b'nov, that's a nov, v'yavu kulam el Hamelech, and they all came to the king. So now he's bringing them in for a trial. V'yomer Shaul, and he said to him, Shema na, listen here, ben Achituv. Again, as you can see, Shaul, not really a fan of him right now, right? Doesn't call him Achimelech. He says, listen here, ben Achituv. V'yomer, and he says, Hineni Aduni, right? He says, here I am, my master, right? Achimelech, very respectful. Also, his life's on the line. V'yomer elav, Shaul says to him, Lama, why? Kishartem alai. Why are you conspiring against me? Ata, you, ben Yishai, bistoch lo. Lechem, you even gave him bread, v'charev, and a sword. V'shaol lo, be'elokim, and you asked God you asked God for him, only reserved for a king. That you are now helping him rise against me. Right? Now you're helping him. Right? Vayanach Achimelech es Hamelech. And Achimelech answers the king. Vayomer, and he says, Umi b'chol avdecha keDavid. Who of all your servants is like David? What do you mean conspiring against the king? Ne'aman, he's so trustworthy. V'chatan Hamelech, he's the king's son-in-law. Sar omashatecha v'nichba b'visecha. Who of him is more of higher stature in the house? I wasn't conspiring against you. I did stuff for David. I did stuff for David, the king's son-in-law. He's top of the line over here. Like, what are you talking about? That I would ask Hashem on his account, Chalilali, God forbid, so he tells him, he says, God forbid that you should blame your servant. The king should not blame his servant over here. I, or my father's house, your servant knew nothing, not big or small. Right? I have no idea what you're talking about. When I did this was David, the king's son-in-law, that I was doing this for, right? So Achimelech is, of course, defending himself because he is innocent. And remember, his alarm bells actually did go off, right? And unfortunately, David convinced him that he was being paranoid, and Achimelech gave in. And unfortunately, Doeg was over there. And we're going to talk about the responsibility that David has in this over here. But Achimelech even tells him, he says, what are you talking about the Urim V'Tumim? You know how many times I've asked the Urim V'Tumim on behalf of David before? You know how many times David came here and said, it's a question about this for the king, question about that, right? David's the king's son-in-law. This is not new, this whole Urim V'Tumim slander that's being thrown at him, right? This is not anything new that he's asking the Urim V'Tumim on behalf of David. And he says, God forbid I would ever act in the interest against the king. If I knew that David was running away from the king, if I knew David was a fugitive, I would have never done this, right? Now, you should know that we never see him make an excuse for the sword and the bread. So it could be that it's not important, I didn't want to include it, or it could be that Shaul cuts him off and doesn't even let him get there. Because we're going to see Shaul is going to have really quick judgment. And we can see from Achimelech's response that he says, nobody in my father's house. We can see that Achimelech knows that it's not just him on trial now, but Shaul suspects all the Cohanim, right? This entire city of Cohanim over here. Vayomer Hamelech, and the king said, Mot tomut, you will surely die, Achimelech. Ata you v'chol beis avicha, in your entire father's house. So Shaul says, you're all dead. Vayomer Hamelech, and now he says, L'ratzim, to the runners, the king says to the runners, Hanatzivim alav, that are standing with them, Sabu v'himatu, turn and kill Kahane Hashem, these Kahanim of Hashem. Ki gam yadam im David, for their hand is with David. V'chi yadu, and they knew Kivarak, that he was running away. V'hu v'lo galu es his name, they never told me, right? So he's saying that they knew he was running away. They never told me. They're in cahoots. So he says to his runners, I want you to kill the Kahanim of Hashem. V'lo avu avdei Hamelech l'shlach es yadam l'fgoa b'kanei Hashem. But the servants of the king did not want to touch the Cohanim of Hashem. These are Cohanim, this is the Kohen Gadol. They say no. They say no to the king. Now, who are these servants? We just referenced that before. This is Avner and Amasa again. Avner and Amasa said, no, we're not killing Cohanim. Now, as you know, Avner Shaul's general, and I said I'll tell you about Amasa a little bit. Fascinating. Amasa is one of the most fascinating people in Tanach to me. He's David's nephew, right? So right away you're thinking over, how in the world, we just said David's family had to run away. How in the world is David's nephew, the second guy over here in Shaul's inner circle, even comfortable enough to say no to Shaul, right? Not just done, you should know way later on, when David's son takes over his kingdom, David's son chooses Amasa to be his general. So Amasa becomes the enemy of David, fights on David's son's war, and when David wins the war, do you know who he makes his next general? Amasa. How this guy is playing all sides of the political lines here, I have no clue. I have no idea how he is in Shaul's camp, David's son's camp. This guy just getting off scot-free, super comfortable, must have had a lot of charisma, I don't know. Amasa. Okay, anyways. They refuse to answer the king. Now the question is, how can you refuse to answer the king? We know from Yeshua was a king, right? He had the status of a king. He was the first, Moshe was really the first status of a king. Then Yeshua took them into Israel. We know that Hashem told Yeshua, any man who rebels against you will die, right? So you have the authority to kill him. But we also know that this only applies to a mitzvah. Because Hashem actually told Yeshua also, be strong and steadfast in mitzvot. Meaning that you only have to listen to a king if he's telling you to do a mitzvah. Otherwise, you don't have to listen. Now it's a little bit risky, but as we can see, they weren't not doing a mitzvah but not listening to him. They felt that this was the wrong decision and they refused to do it. And you know what's interesting is Shaul let them go. Shaul said, "Yeah, you don't have to do it." And Shaul is going to turn to Doeg now and say, "Doeg, you're the one who slandered him. You're the one who's incriminating him. You do it." Now we see something over here that lashon hara, in a way, is even worse than murder. Why is it worse than murder? Because lashon hara can extinguish. We said the three lives that lashon hara, that Yonatan kind of hinted at, that it affects the three lives, right? Lashon hara affects the person spoken about, the person who says it, and the person who hears it. Well, let's look at this over here. Lashon hara spoke about Hamelech. What happened to him? He died. Doeg spoke lashon hara. What happened to him? Forever, eternity, he lost his world, uprooted in this world and the next. And Shaul, who listened to this lashon hara, he eventually dies because of this sin of killing out the city of Cohanim. So we see over here that this lashon hara got all three parties killed. And you know what's interesting about lashon hara is that if somebody murders someone, you know the only way they get killed is that if there's two edim and they have a trial. You see with lashon hara, you don't need edim, you don't need a trial. Lashon hara can kill without any court system in place, and it can kill multiple parties. So lashon hara, in a way, has the power to kill without witnesses, without a trial. It's even more powerful. It's even worse. Vayomer Hamelech, Pasuk Yuchas. Vayomer Hamelech leDoeg. So the king says to Doeg, Sovata, you turn around, ufega ba'Kohanim, and you assault the Kohanim. Vayisov Doeg, Hadumi. So he turned around. Let's see, no thought. He turned around. Vayifgahu ba'Kohanim, and he assaulted the Kohanim. Vayomet bayom, and he killed on that day. Ahu shmonim b'chamisha, 85 people. No se'ephod, but who wore the ephod, right? So, as you can see, Shaul actually says to Doeg, he says, "You already killed them with your tongue. Kill them with your hand, right? Stand on business." And Doeg doesn't even think, and he goes and kills out. There's an opinion that he killed out the entire city. David, what?
They just let one guy do his thing.
He killed everyone. Yeah.
Other Cohens now.
What? This is not every Cohen who was killed, but this family of Cohanim was out. You should know that in Tehillim number 5, David says about Doeg, he says, "May you destroy the speakers of falsehood, a bloodthirsty and deceitful man, God abhors." And he's talking about Doeg and Achitophel. We'll get to Achitophel later on. It's another enemy of David from the Sefer Beis of Shmuel. We'll get there next year. But anyways, both of them were guilty of promoting or personally committing adultery and murder, right? We see over how are they both guilty of adultery and murder. We'll get to Achitophel, but we'll see over here that Doeg is literally guilty of murder over here. He murders these people. And if you remember, we referenced before that Doeg told Shaul to give Michal, David's wife, to Palti, because it's like David is dead if the king wants him dead, and that he was literally committing adultery. That's not allowed halachically, even though he's a great Torah scholar. That was his halacha. That like if a guy's wanted dead by the king, he's considered dead. So he literally forced. Now Michal didn't end up doing anything. Palti put a sword in between the bed, as we referenced, but he tried to commit adultery as well. Ve'ein. Let's quickly run through the last 3 psukim. Ve'ein nov ir hakohanim, and Nov, the city of Cohanim, he killed by the sword over there. Me'ish v'arisha, he killed men and women. Me'alav v'ad yonek, and children, babies, v'shar, and ox, v'chamar, and donkeys, v'sel leficharev, and sheep by the sword. So as you can see, Doeg did not just kill the men, not just kill the women, he not just killed the babies, he killed the donkeys, he killed the animals and everything like that, which sounds very familiar, right? What does it sound familiar to?
Well, isn't Doeg the one who tells Shaul that he can leave the sheep for Amalek?
So it sounds very similar to Hamelech, where Hashem tells us, when it comes to Hamelech, you need to kill the donkeys, you need to kill the babies, and everybody says that sounds so cruel. And Doeg and Shaul is the one who had mercy on the Kohanim, on the Amalekim, right? The only reason why Amalek still exists, the only reason why Haman exists, is because Shaul had mercy, right? Presumably Hitler as well, because Shaul had mercy on the Kohanim, on the Amalekim. Why did he have mercy? Shaul naturally was a merciful person. That's the truth. He naturally was a humble and merciful person. I know it doesn't sound like this now, because you should know, after he had mercy on these people, there was a heavenly voice that rang out that said, do not be overly righteous. And when he did this now, a heavenly voice rang out and said, do not be overly wicked. Which we're told, Shimon ben Lakish tells us, that whoever behaves with compassion in a situation that requires cruelty will respond with cruelty in a situation that requires compassion. Right? And you see that happening over here. Shaul was supposed to be cruel in that moment. It was just, but he was supposed to be cruel, and he had compassion. And then that puts you out of balance. Then you're going to have cruelty when you're supposed to have compassion. This was also David's greatest strength as a leader, is that he knew when to be cruel. David was not somebody who let people off the hook, but sometimes we see him didn't. It seems odd. He knew when to do it. It's a real skill, because this is what ends up happening. You put yourself out of balance. It's really important, because a lot of times people will be like, no, let me be nice, right? Or let's be nice in this situation, that situation. You could apply it to so many things nowadays, where there's people who say to be overly nice. If you are nice when you're supposed to be cruel, you will be cruel when you're supposed to be nice. I can give examples, but we'll go off record for that. Anyways, let's finish it really quickly, just because it's a bad place to stop. Just so you know, this family of Kohanim were cursed generations before by Hashem. They're the sons of Eli. They're supposed to die. Eli Cohen, which is the Cohen that Chana cried to, who then she had Shmuel. They for whatever reason got a curse upon them. Some say Shaul knew about this curse, so he was more okay with it. But either way, it was still not okay. Vayimalet ben Echad Achimelech. But one of the children of Achimelech ben Achituv was Shmo Evyatar. Evyatar was his name. Vayivrach Achrei David. He escaped and ran after David. Vayeged Evyatar le David. And he told David, Ki arag Shaul es Kohanei Hashem, that Shaul killed the Kohanim of Hashem. Vayomor David le Evyatar. And David said to Evyatar, Yadati, I knew, by Yom Hahu, on that day, Kisham Doeg Adumi, when I saw Doeg Adumi over there, Ki aged Yagid l'Shaul, that he will certainly tell Shaul, Anochi, Sabisi b'chol nefesh beis avicha. It is I who brought about the death on your father's house. So we see David take accountability here. He says, I knew when I saw Doeg what would happen. It's my fault that your entire family is dead. And in terms of Evyatar being outside of the curse, there's an opinion that he was the youngest, so he was born outside of when this curse happened. So whatever, the curse doesn't apply to him. Shiva iti, David's not done. He says to him, stay with me. Al tira, do not be afraid. Ki asher yivakesh es nafshi, for the one who seeks my soul, my life, yivakesh es nashacha, seeks your life. Ki mishmeret atayamadi, it is with me that you will be kept safe. And just so you know, David protects Evyatar, and way later on, a bunch of generations later, Evyatar's descendant is the one who saves David's descendant's life. We can talk about that next Tanach because we're out of time, but his name is Yoash, so it goes full circle. I'll bring it up next time. I just want to tell you that the Chida says the following about this. He says, we'll end with this, he says the following, quote, in truth, this matter of Nov, city of Kohanim, makes one's hair stand on end, the less said about it, the better. Right? This is just a really bad episode in our history. All right, thanks for joining. I know that was long this week.
Thanks, Rabbi.